But this will be a disaster for the town because we don't have enough room to expand. We have about 50 people working at the height of the tourist season.
Where's the efficiency?
Well, the efficiency would be that those just get one license. You can continue to do that. People no longer have much faith in government. I spent the better part of yesterday and during the course of the day trying to get to the motor vehicle department just to get some service and never got through. That's outrageous. That has to change.
The lanes are open. Traffic is moving. The Blotnick Bridge is back in action. After 10 months of detours and delays, motorists are anxious to once again travel the High Bridge. Perhaps some a little too anxious to notice some changes.
We've seen some pretty close calls already.
Frank Gurman owns a Superior spur station at the foot of the bridge. He has a front row seat for what he calls an accident waiting to happen.
People were actually stopping out here because they're used to stopping. And then they found out there wasn't a stop sign, they'd take off, and somebody else was coming through and stopped at this stop sign and darn near hit them.
When the bridge closed, there was a stop sign here, but now that the bridge is reopened, it's gone. Still, there's confusion among many motorists. DOT officials say they removed the stop sign at Hammond Avenue and 5th Street to cut down on the number of traffic accidents in the area. It is hoped the free flow of traffic will clear the intersection's congestion. The change may prove useful down the road, but for now, the intersection can be dangerous.
You can see they plug up the intersection. And a lot of times they intimidate this car, so this car stops and he waves them through.
Semi-trucks are supposed to stick to the official route, which takes them through Superior. But many local drivers have and continue to use 5th Street as a shortcut. Motorists, too, are finding some habits hard to break.
Once the person makes the stop, then the person behind it, they're just looking at the car ahead. They don't look and see that there's no stop sign. But we can't come out here and put a sign that says, do not stop.
If all goes as planned, no signs will be needed. DOT officials say on and off ramps now under construction should help clear the confusion. In Superior, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
Well, it helps us, helps our ego somewhat, makes us feel good about what's happening in Duluth and the beauty of the city and some of the improvements. But I think what's probably more important is the recognition that is starting to transfer itself to things like new jobs.
Planes of all types are converging on the Duluth International Airport in preparation for this year's Aviation Expo. After 2 years off, the air show has now become an annual event that brings in big dollars for the city of Duluth.
Past air shows have brought in about $4 to $5 million to the city, and we have seen crowds anywhere up to 50,000 people for the entire weekend.
Highlighting this year's show will be the F-117 stealth fighter plane. First used in combat during Desert Storm, the Stealth will be making its first appearance in Minnesota. Also at this year's event will be the addition of pyrotechnics, that courtesy of Mad Bomber Incorporated.
The spectators really, get something out of it because it's a lot of noise and fire and smoke and stuff.
With 50,000 expected through the weekend, parking will be broken into 2 separate areas. To park directly on site will cost $5, or for $3 you could park at the air park and be transported by shuttle to the show. Shows begin at 2 o'clock both Saturday and Sunday afternoon, with gates opening at 10 a.m. In Duluth, Ted Rollins, News 6.
Shapes and sizes are on display at the Duluth Aviation Expo. A top attraction this year is the F-117 Stealth on its first visit to Minnesota. Used in the Gulf War, the Stealth is invisible to radar.
With this airplane, with the type of angles that you see on it, the radar wave hits it and it kind of funnels it or directs it off in a different direction and not directly back at the site.
This C-5 cargo plane is by far the largest aircraft on display. Weighing 369,000 pounds without fuel or cargo, there's no wonder why its nickname is the Galaxy.
And we can carry anything from tanks, buses, helicopters.
And this Air Force recruiting mini-jet would have no trouble squeezing in as well. The mini-jet doesn't actually get off the ground, but F-16 Fighting Falcons sure do. Many families are taking in the sights, sounds, and tastes of the air show, including the Gabriellis from St. Paul.
They've never been to an air show before, and they thought they might like to see this and see their uncle fly and make a day of it.
The Aviation Expo continues through the weekend.
See there.
In Duluth, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
High ground that won't be affected by any of the ponding water. In the 70s, on the public end, and 90% on the approximately 18,000 gallons of a minute that
they're involved in, and in fact, most crime that adults are involved in have to do with.
What I want to say now in another minute, I don't think the average person that's on low wages should have to pay it. I think everybody that's on a system all the way from Hermantown to Cloquet, wherever you go, they should pay the same amount as the people in Duluth.
No, I think that's unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court ruled that they were not ruling on the constitutionality of that part of the statute because they don't make a ruling unless somebody has been disadvantaged by it, and nobody has ever been denied the right to run for office. I will be the first one.
government can do more with less just by using good management. And notice the backbone. He's not afraid to take a stand on the major issues. To learn.
This one says Minnesota's bicameral one-house legislature will reduce lobbyist influence.
I think creativity always goes over well. You make a good commercial, it'll sell. You make a bad commercial, it falls like a pancake. I think people want, and they also want a measure of humor along with enlightenment. If you want to reach Minnesotans, you must educate, entertain, and enlighten.
Simply let your fingers do Milwaukee. Vote Democrats Tony Boza and Kim Stone.
Interest in our campaign out there among all sorts of people. So this particular one says Tony Boza could be called the thinking person's candidate. Looks like we caught you at a good time. And we have our logo down there. And there's also, there is a purpose to all this, and it's to, again, drive
missions that they can provide. Like take Alaska Missions has a very proud history, been very involved. And I think it's important for us to realize that although we can, many of us in civilian jobs can look at the changes going on within our own environment, our own workplace, those same changes are being reflected right now in the Army Reserve and the active Army. Tremendous adjustment occurring, a refocusing going on because of the post-Cold War era that we're into right now.
The idea is to go out, it's not a race, but the idea is to go out and have fun, enjoy themselves at either the distances of a 5K, 10K, 20K, or 50K. And each of them has raised money on behalf of our organizations to keep our services and assist in the funding of those.
So, would you like to...
It was a devastating chain of events that sent 2 men to the hospital, demolished a semi, and banged up 8 vehicles, including a yellow cab and a DTA bus. After his wild ride ended, the driver of the dump truck was pinned in the crushed cab of the truck for 40 minutes as crews used the jaws of life to pry him loose. Meanwhile, the driver of the yellow cab was pulled from his vehicle and rushed to the hospital. Hundreds of people crowded around the accident, including many of those who had been in the North Shore Bank when the semi-truck was pushed into the wall by the dump truck.
So I seen him coming down, and his truck looked like it was going too fast, and he was shifting and trying to get the truck to slow down, and then his wheels started smoking because they couldn't stop, and he was coming straight down the hill, and he was trying to avoid cars and stuff, and then you could tell he didn't have no brakes because the light was red, and he just kept going.
First thing that we did is we went up and looked in the red truck. There was nobody in there, and then went up and looked in the dump truck, and there was a guy inside the dump truck that was all bloody and pretty bad, laying on glass in the seat. We started yelling to the cops and stuff to get over there.
Luckily, the driver of the semi was in the bank making a delivery of bank statements when his semi was demolished. As the crowds pushed closer, police moved to cordon off the area and move people back.
We have cars that have been badly mangled and damaged, and we don't know if it's gas or oil or what it is that's involved in it, so that's why we're so insistent that the people stay back. We have a dangerous situation here yet. It's not stable, and we need both the room and the opportunity to do that, and that's why we're so persistent.
A square block area around Superior Street and 2nd Avenue West was blocked off as cleanup of leaking diesel fuel and gasoline continued. Authorities say the danger of fire or explosion is very slight at this point, but environmental concerns remain. There's also concern about structural damage to the North Shore Bank and the Skywalk. Structural engineers will be called in to evaluate. In Duluth, Derek Hines, News 6.
The fall harvest isn't in yet, and our primary concern is the spring wheat and barley, and durum as well. That's the pasta cousin of wheat. The soybeans that are predicted to have quite a huge crop this year, in some cases do come through Duluth, but not in the same volumes as do the durum, spring wheat, and barley.
We're on the city council for 4 terms.
This is my 4th term. Yes, I'm in my 7th year. Our community, and I'm ready to face that challenge. As a leader of the community, I pledge to work to serve the citizens, be fair and honest in responding to the public needs, and produce positive changes in economic growth, and support any cost-saving measures to the taxpayers for a no-frill, responsible government.
And you see here the number of bushels of oats sprayed on each occasion. That one man, to line his own pocket, on his own decided to expose millions of adults and children to an unapproved pesticide in their breakfast Cheerios.
All that's happening here is that we know that he'll continue to be detained, and so we don't have to get our information to a judge to get a formal complaint within that 36-hour timeline.
It's a very quiet neighborhood. Nothing happens like this at all. So it's so different from being in the city. It's quiet. It's absolutely a shock.
Duluth Township residents are stunned tonight after an early morning murder. Shortly before 2 this morning, a 39-year-old mother of 3 was found at her residence with a fatal gunshot wound to the head. Law enforcement officials are asking Channel 6 News to withhold the victim's identity because 2 family members have not been located. The St. Louis County Sheriff's Department will not confirm nor deny whether they're suspects.
Well, right now we have one prime suspect. We are not ruling out any others that may come up during the investigation.
Various law enforcement agencies have been searching for that one suspect since early this morning.
Yes, I do have some officers combined with several other agencies, Lake County Sheriff's Office, Duluth Township Police, looking for an individual.
The murder victim lived in Duluth Township with her boyfriend and 2 sons and has a daughter living in Germany. Those who knew the woman say they're shocked.
So she's just a very pleasant, happy person. So I was just a shock to see her, to hear that she died. It's still tough to handle.
While authorities continue to search for the suspect, residents of this small rural community are searching for answers of their own. In Duluth Township, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
We had no idea like this, that anything like this would ever happen to us. And I said I would rather it would have been me than her, because she has so much life in front of her, you know.
Margaret Alexander is grieving over the violent death of her daughter Kathy.
She just loved everything, everything. And her children were her most important, you know. But she was strict with them, firm with them. She never beat them or anything, but firm with them. She expected them to, you know, be good children.
Relatives say they're heartbroken knowing that Newblum will never see her first grandchild. Newbloom's daughter, Bridget, is expecting a baby in just a couple of months.
She said her mother was really counting on it, and she wanted a girl, but she says, I'll take whatever it is. And for her first grandchild, you know.
Newbloom was sleeping in her Duluth Township residence when her life came to an abrupt end. The autopsy report confirms she died of a .22 caliber gunshot wound to the head. And even more shocking, her youngest son, Eli, a Two Harbors High School student, has been arrested.
Right now, the boy's lodged on a probation violation at the Arrowhead Juvenile Center, and those charges were absolutely unrelated to this one. The murder charges are pending and should be issued very, very soon.
But it will be a long time before the family understands why Kathy Newbloom's life came to such an untimely end. Gina Katzmark, News 6.
And so we hope maybe with the kind of foggy weather.
That would help it along.
I think the most important thing about tonight is that we're trying to get a broad cross-section from the community. What do they think is important, not what we, the providers, think is important. So it's a good chance for people to come and express themselves.
Just this last May, Murphy Oil spent more than $10 million to reduce its production of air emissions by 95%. Now the Superior-based oil company is turning its sights to water quality, and it will spend $12 million to build a new wastewater treatment facility that will reduce its discharge levels by 90%.
We would not be able to meet the permitted levels of discharge in the new permit with our old wastewater treatment facility, so it requires a new state-of-the-art facility to meet the permit limitations. It's probably one of the toughest, if not the hardest permit for a refinery anywhere in the world, and we are building a new $12 million wastewater treatment plant so that we can meet that permit in the future.
Murphy Oil is no stranger to spending money on upgrades and refinements in the recent future. Since 1990, a total of $23 million has been spent on air quality improvements, and once the wastewater treatment plant is complete, the total for water quality improvements will be $15 million and counting.
Certainly have lots of projects. This fall and early next year, we will be making some plant changes to allow us to meet the reformulated gasoline regulations.
Current oil production for Murphy stands at 30,000 barrels a day, which, once refined, produces 15,000 barrels of gas. The company hopes the new improvements are the fuel for a cleaner environment and a quick end to Murphy's history of environmental fines. In Superior, John Jetta, News 6.
Well, it goes directly to our group, our Little H League group, and in turn we use all that money, we're all volunteers, for purchasing books, purchasing information sheets which we distribute to mothers who call us on the telephone, to the local hospitals and the WIC clinics.
unusual when we can find suckers in the Apostle Islands and can't find suckers in Duluth Harbor.
Dr. Tom Urell is looking for more than white suckers along the bottom of Lake Superior. He and his colleagues are looking for answers. Today's excursion is part of EnviroVet, a program hosted by UND, bringing veterinarian professionals and students from across the country to study the environment.
And we use it to both train professionals for the future and to bring together a group of interested people to look at the ecosystem in a way using the very best state-of-the-art techniques.
The group left Duluth's harbor this morning aboard the L.L. Smith, a UWS research vessel. They spent the day trolling for white suckers. The goal, compare fish from a contaminated environment to those found in the pristine environment of the Apostle Islands.
That was 18 right there.
The first roll turned up only smelt, but the group took advantage of the opportunity to learn what they could about the species.
Oh my gosh, this deal's huge.
The second troll gave the group what they wanted.
And then we've seen a couple real obvious external lesions. We're going to see a lot more once we get inside.
Lesions were cut from the fish to be studied at a later time.
The group tries to be as humane as it can in the process. Once the fish are taken from the net, they're actually dropped into buckets of an anesthetic solution, which drops the fish into a state of unconsciousness before it dies.
The program, now in its fourth year, continues to draw a diverse group of people looking for ways to preserve Mother Nature.
This is a broad-based experience in trying to find out, get more information, especially with toxicology, fish health issues, and this is the ideal forum for talking to a lot of people and getting a lot of resources.
Resources this group hopes to use to help save our natural resources. On Lake Superior, Stephanie Guardian, News 6.
Thank you for coming, and I would be glad to take questions. About the hidden taxes that are in both Clinton and Mitchell's bill. The filibuster is a gridlock machine that is used to kill legislation and to stop Congress from acting on real solutions to the problems that are important to mainstream America. Doctor, it's important that we allow the Senate to go ahead and proceed.
We've probably a little bit more than doubled our entertainment budget, and Chris has put together a lineup of entertainment for this year's event that includes 14 WC Handy Award winners, which are the blues equivalent of a Grammy, and 6 of those are Grammy Award winners as well.
Burlington, very courageous move 10 years ago, and I'm particularly pleased that the state has now really taken a look at how important these contiguous trail routes are, not just for trail development as we're talking about it, but they are indeed, I think, our link to the future. Be it mass transit to the Twin Cities, accessible by the Gandy Dancer Trail, be it the
Firefighters from Solway, Hermantown, Friedenberg, Gnesen, and Halo departed from Duluth last night, saying goodbye to loved ones before embarking on their 21-day journey out west.
Oh, I think we'll do great, all of us together. You know, we'll be supporting each other, and it gives us an opportunity to use the training, you know.
Local firefighters say they're more anxious than afraid.
Everyone out there is well trained. Everything's well thought out. They know what they're doing. They know how to do it. And I'm just hoping that by going out there, we can help people and show them that we have a high level of training in this area.
The DNR is paying the township firefighters and departments for their assistance. That money will go towards purchasing new equipment for local townships. In Duluth, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
Mr. Hadlock went looking for the mother of his child. He was angry about something, and he was threatening to kill her. She was with some friends and had managed to hide herself from him. During the ongoing little altercations or the attempts by him to locate her, he did go and take the child from a babysitter and take off with the child. He had conveyed through other persons that he intended to kill the child, himself, and of course the mother of the child.
We went down a trail about half-mile long and then upstream about a quarter-mile through the Black River to where the victim was. He was moving unconscious. Eventually we ended up having 15 or 16 people there, including the Douglas County Sheriff's Department, the local ambulance services, and the local search and rescue team. And all of them were needed because it was quite an ordeal getting them out through the boulders.
Doubt. When you see the discussion in the jury instructions, they say that reason to doubt and reasonable doubt are the...
That's his testimony to those discussions. And at the time, again, primarily because she was so articulate in other areas, I simply did not see the issue was a competency issue at that time.
Deficient performance may not have prejudiced.
Indicated would be the rejection of the negotiated plea.
Well, at least the feeling, I think not just at that point, but the feeling repeatedly during
engaged in a scuffle with the suspect, who drew a firearm, shot Officer Ryan, stood over him, shot him again, and removed the officer's handgun. No idea what's going on. It's strange. Pardon me?
Boza hires union busters to raise his money. Boza wants to study the legalization of drugs.
And at one time, Boza even wanted to take away our taconite funding.
And I am outraged that Mike Hatch would tell this lie about Tony Boza. Tony Boza is not for taking the taconite tax from the Iron Range. He has said so publicly so many times. We've got it in letters so many times that he supports the taconite tax, as I do. I live on the Iron Range.
It's a pattern and practice of a police chief who, frankly, has no identity with either the worker or much less the Minnesota Democratic Party when it comes to basic issues relating to labor.
I know that when a woman lives in a home, when she's battered, if there's a gun there, that she's 5 times more likely to be killed. I know that if there's a gun in that woman's home, that she's likely to be a dead woman and not a battered woman. These shoes.
The Superior Police are investigating an assault that happened in the 1100 block of Hammond Avenue the afternoon of Tuesday, August 16th. The house resident went down into her basement and surprised a burglar who was hiding in her laundry room. Before she could react, he grabbed her, shoved her against the sink, and struck her twice in the face with his left hand. He then pushed her aside and ran out the basement door. The burglar was a 25-year-old white male, 6'1", 190 pounds. He had short-cropped brown hair and a mustache. He wore at least 2 rings on his left hand, and one of them was turquoise. If you have any information about this person, Crime Stoppers would like to know about it. You could get a cash reward up to $1,000, and he'll never find out who told us about him. Call 1-800-974-TIPS or 723-ENOUGH.
Anybody other people available here? I need another person. Let's go.
The call went out at 6 p.m. last night. A school bus had collided with a fuel tanker near the Hibbing Airport. And although this accident was a simulation orchestrated by 25 volunteer victims, rescuers treated the event like the real thing.
This collision could happen anywhere, but we've staged it just outside of Hibbing tonight, involving 25 patients. We're going to send 20 patients to the Virginia Regional Medical Center and 5 to Mesabi Regional Medical Center in Hibbing by a variety of ambulances. Up to 7 or 8 different ambulances are participating tonight.
Last night's training exercise is a result of a real-life disaster which happened near Hibbing last December. 18 people were killed when commuter flight 5719 crashed while approaching the local airport. That tragedy spurred the creation of the Iron Range Disaster Committee, a group representing local fire departments, ambulance services, hospitals, law enforcement agencies, and mental health services.
This group that you're seeing participate here tonight is formulating as a result of the understanding that not one agency here in northern Minnesota has the ability to cope with a scenario such as this in the real world with their own individual resources. Our goal here is to cooperate, sharing resources for the betterment of the patient.
Last night's emergency exercise received high marks for both reality and response. Michelle Lee, News 6. and response. Michelle Lee, News 6.
I had two sons that played hockey, and we'd lay their stuff out in the basement, and it would stink up the whole house. And I thought there has to be a better way.
So Greg Dahmers began working on a drying mechanism that would reduce drying time and get rid of odor. After 3.5 years, the dry lock was invented. This invention dries anything from rollerblades and firewood to regular clothing, and it really does kill stinky germs during the process. Incidentally, compared to a regular dryer, this machine costs 50% less to use.
I didn't start out intending to take 3.5 years. I built one to start with to see if it would work, and it worked so good. And I realized I might have something here.
Dry lock is just one of the many ingenious inventions being demonstrated at the workshop. Others include inventions created to help the environment.
And we produce a bead, which is a lightweight aggregate that replaces sand and gravel and concrete.
That pellet is made of sludge from paper mills and incinerator ash, two waste products that are currently dumped into landfills. Another invention helps save gas and money. Picture driving down the road from city to city, tuning your car according to the weather forecast. One inventor has spent 15 years trying to perfect this option on cars.
I believe this is the only car in the world which you can alter the tune-up by radio control.
Now, where are you going to get your forecast from?
From you.
This tune-up can increase gas mileage by setting the car's performance to the optimum daily weather conditions. At the deck in Duluth, John Jetta, News 6.
Problem, the casinos and so forth. We have, on occasion, made various attempts at various levels.
In part because they start gambling with less cushion. They start gambling with more desperation in their lives. They start gambling with greater hope, if you will, to try to get out of their status by winning it big. And they lose very quickly. And as they lose quickly, they go downhill, much more quickly than perhaps the general public might as they start gambling. Taking 3 or 4 years of gambling to get into severe financial problems. Low income or in severe financial problems in a matter of several months of starting to gamble.
We're taking a stand for what God believes is true, and that all children are important and everybody's created equal.
Okay, and is there a specific reason for...
The weekend came early today for Grant Elementary students. A backed-up sewer sent kids packing up and heading home. Marilyn Fawcett works in the school's cafeteria and was the first to notice the trouble.
And then all of a sudden, water started coming out of the area here, but it was just clear water. We had no sewage or anything, it was just clear water.
Still, it was enough of a problem to send school officials looking for other trouble spots.
We checked other areas, and the bathrooms were kind of gurgling, and then these drinking fountains were flooding over or bubbling up with wastewater, soapy kind of water.
School officials say they aren't exactly sure what caused the problem here at Grant School, but sewage workers say they think it has something to do with this tree. More specifically, its roots.
The tree roots get in the sewer line. We're here about twice a year. It's about 80 to 90 feet long, and it goes directly into the manhole over here.
Workers were able to clear a plugged pipe outside the building, connecting the school to the city's sewer line. And while investigators continue to look into the cause of the problem, sewage workers say they have one easy solution.
Take the tree down, take the stump out.
In Duluth, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
It isn't very often that you have a place that is still going in 100 years. And my mother and dad were lived up here, and my grandparents are all buried up here in the cemetery also. That was the reason why I came here today.
Tonight, so you want to have a baby. Millions of couples and singles do, but couldn't until now. What do you do? Get some answers from the latest in science to surrogacy. Watch this special series beginning tonight on NBC Nightly News.
I'm Dave Jench. Coming up on the 6 o'clock news, there's more trouble for aqua farms in Chisholm. The financially struggling fish farm is facing the possibility of more fines from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for increasing pollution. And if your roof drain is attached to Duluth's storm sewer system, you could be in trouble. City crews will spend the next month looking for violators. Join us for these stories and more on tonight's 6 o'clock news.
This is where the flow goes.
Two years ago, Ruth Ford and her family nearly died from carbon monoxide poisoning. A faulty furnace caused the toxic gas to fill their home.
It was like a bad dream where you can't scream or you can't run. You know, I thought, I'm not going to be able to get out of here with my boys.
Carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas that occurs when heating fuels such as wood, oil, and gas don't fully burn. Your heating system needs to be periodically inspected and maintained so carbon monoxide doesn't build up in your home.
Often people buy furnaces and they have them for 20 years and they don't ever look at them and don't maintain them. You have to change the filters, and you should have a service done on them annually to make sure they're running properly and they're burning and they're for the right combustion.
Even if you're careful about maintaining your home heating system, a carbon monoxide detector is a good device to have. They work just like a smoke detector, making a loud buzz or beep when carbon monoxide is in the air. Those exposed to carbon monoxide may get headaches, nausea, dizziness, chest pains, or flu-like symptoms. If you experience any of these symptoms, you should immediately open a window or go outside for fresh air, then arrange to see your doctor. If you suspect a carbon monoxide problem in your home, you should contact your local heating dealer and have your furnace inspected. Gina Katzmark, News 6.
It's a mandatory court appearance. Like I said, that's a good thing to point out. If anybody does this, they can't just...
The law says that people need to stop at least 20 feet away from the school bus when the stop arm is out. And anytime you see that out, there could be children that could be crossing the road or will be crossing the road. So that's why it's so important that people do stop.
Convenient for you. I thought no, we have 100, our authorized strength, I should say, for 1995 will be 100, and so this whole process takes several months to accomplish. We, again, encourage everybody in the area or for people who are outside the area who may see this, you apply for this job, you'll take a written test, there'll be a series of oral interviews, there's background investigations done on all candidates, psychological evaluation.
Whatever they may choose to call themselves from holding caucuses for their Democrats have proportional representation where we think that the time has come where seniors, people in rural areas, people with young children, or just because of bad weather, you ought to be able to have the choice to either go vote in person or it ought to be your option as to whether or not you want to vote absentee. Parties, they operate differently between the Democrats and the Republicans in every state we've looked at. Excuse me, Colorado, Massachusetts, Connecticut, all of them do it to
decide on. Where does it go from here?
There are other states. At the last development meeting we had, there were representatives from probably about a dozen states in the United States, and there were people from about 4 foreign countries that are looking at the unit and looking at the technology. Not too very far from where Elizabeth did. I used to teach school, and I had her husband in class.
If we just would slow it down and increase that following distance, we'll be able to save ourselves economically and some of the heartbreak that goes along with traffic collisions.
Carotid occlusive disease that we're talking about here.
is heart disease, advantage we have. But certainly, I would say people that were trained, versed in carotid endarterectomy. And the number that came out of that study and the NIH study is an acceptable number of 3% or less. It narrows down to 60%. That's the number we're using.
And that's what the study examined was down to 60.
We know that they were developing this atheromatous disease, or plaque, which we call it, or narrowing. We were seeing people once they became symptomatic, and we were saying to ourselves, we know there are a lot of people that are developing this disease before they get to 70%. They would truly benefit from.
Go on, trick-or-treating. We'll just skip video you trick-or-treating. Bye-bye. Mayor Gary Doty says he's proud of the job he's doing and he wants to be elected to another term.
Employment is up, the numbers of new jobs in the community are up. We've provided and been involved in working with about 2,000 units of rehab housing and new housing, and there's a good feeling in the community.
But at least 3 Duluth City Councilors say they think they could do a better job than Doty, so they're testing the political waters.
So I'm giving it some serious thought, and I've been talking it over with individuals and groups of people whose opinions I respect, and I think there's plenty of time yet to make a decision.
11-year City Council veteran Neil Atkins says he's very serious about running for mayor. Atkins says he's already formed a campaign committee and has hosted fundraisers.
The candidates that'll be the serious candidates are those, I believe, that have forged their plan, built their campaign early on, not waited to the last minute or waited for egos to help build them into a campaign.
Even though he hasn't made an official campaign announcement, City Councilor David Wheeler says he's getting an early start on a mayoral campaign. Wheeler says he has the qualities Duluthians are looking for in a mayor.
There are a variety of ways of serving the community, and I've been involved in a lot of them. And I think that's some of the richness in the experience and background that I would bring.
After voters go to the polls this Tuesday for Decision 94, you can bet new candidates will be coming forward one by one, throwing their hats into the race for Duluth mayor. Gina Katzmark, News 6.
Without a doubt, most Northlanders have a deep respect for Lake Superior. But long before it was immortalized by Gordon Lightfoot, November had the most sinister reputation of all. Although this November has been a series of gorgeous days, conditions out over the lake and up in the atmosphere are beginning to change. There are now some present which can give rise to storms that not only rival hurricanes in their intensity, but also in their appearance.
So in November, it's not unusual for Lake Superior to have temperatures still in the lower 40s or at the surface. And if the air temperature is in the 20s or lower 30s, that's a great deal colder. And the colder air going over the warmer waters causes lots of clouds and lots of moisture to get trapped in these storms. And when the winds blow off the lake, you get these large, enormous storms that can produce a lot of snow and a lot of precipitation and very strong winds.
For mariners plying the confined waters of the Great Lakes, quiet moments are few and far between.
Also, we often have a snow aspect and tremendous winds and big seas, and then across seas. Often the seas in Lake Superior late in the winter and in November, one sea doesn't die down before the other one springs up. And there's just, no matter how you steer the ship, she won't ride, and she really, they take a licking, you know. You take a licking, yeah.
Fortunately, the exact conditions for a huge storm are difficult to bring together, so they aren't frequent occurrences.
Well, the really big ones we don't see very often, but every winter we get the storms with the winds off the lake, with the high waves and the snow. And
when they do occur, their consequences can be devastating. Tomorrow we'll take an in-depth look at the most infamous storm to ever strike the lake. George Kessler, News 6.
Last July, Fred Shannon led only the third underwater expedition ever to view the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. He used a manned research submarine to inspect the site, shooting videotape and taking hundreds of still photographs. It was during Shannon's expedition that the first body of a crew member was found.
On our last dive of the first day, dive number 4, about 1/3 of the way through the dive, we received word from the sub that a crew member had been located. And of course, this put a completely different twist to our investigation of the Fitzgerald, and the project itself took on a different flavor.
Shannon's team found an extreme and tearing pattern in the hull of the Fitzgerald that they say indicates the ship broke into pieces over a period of time. Shannon blames the breakup on bad welds and an overall lack of maintenance. Shannon also discovered evidence that crew members were responding to the emergency, indicating the boat didn't go down under one giant wave.
The ship was positioned well offshore when its anchor no longer held and it started drifting towards the beach. The Furad finally ran aground less than 100 feet from the beach line. The Turkish ship is carrying a load of steel and was eventually heading to the port several miles away. The Coast Guard has many concerns today. Their first goal is preventing any oil or fuel from polluting the beach.
There is a pollution threat on board, but we're going to take every means necessary to ensure that that doesn't happen.
That's with the fuel and the oil that's on board?
Yes, presently our best estimate, there's about 600 tons of fuel on board.
The 29 crew members are still on board. No one was injured, and they're staying with the vessel.
It's happening on average once every 2 weeks. A call of a house fire in the central hillside. When firefighters arrive, it's the same story, another vacant house, another case of arson. A week ago Saturday, this home on East 3rd Street was set on fire. It, like many of the others, is abandoned and had been burned before. 9 of the 15 fires have occurred in a 2.5-block area between 3rd and 4th Avenue East.
What we're doing right now is all the investigations are ongoing. We're looking at all of them, and the police department's real active in that.
Police say they have found at least 6 people living in the central hillside area with previous records involving arson. Although they've kept a close eye on those individuals and the entire area, they have not been able to solve any of these crimes. So now they're asking area residents to help.
The central hillside residents of Duluth seem to be getting more than their fair share of crime lately.
It's the crime of the week on TV and radio, and at a community meeting last night, representatives from Duluth Police and Fire talked with residents about the fires and asked them to report anything they see that might be suspicious.
And I guess what we ask is from everybody is, you're the people living in the area, the crimes are occurring in the area, we can't be here all the time, but yet somebody is walking around the area and somebody in the hillside knows who's starting these fires.
Solving arson crimes is extremely difficult. Many times, key evidence is burned. Duluth police are now counting on the eyes and ears of the central hillside to stop the pattern before the next fire. In Duluth, Ted Rollins, News 6.
Two burglars broke into a home on Kenwood Avenue near South Road the afternoon of Wednesday, November 2nd. They knocked on the front door to make sure no one was home, and then went around to the back of the house where they pried open the basement door. They stole unique jewelry from one of the bedrooms and new archery equipment which included a green Hoyt compound bow and several dozen arrows. As they left, they also stole stereo equipment from the son's bedroom. Two 19-year-old white males were seen in the yard about the time of the burglary. One was tall and thin with shoulder-length dark hair. Do you know who these criminals are? Do you know who bought the stolen goods? Crime Stoppers will pay someone up to $1,000 for that information and never reveal who called. Call us at 1-800-974-TIPS or 723-ENOUGH. Since the beginning of the year, over 25 cars have been broken into and vandalized in the Merritt neighborhood near Denville High School in Duluth. One family has been victimized 4 times. The last incident occurred in front of their house about 5:30 in the morning on Friday, November 8th. Someone smashed the window of their car and stole a cellular phone amplifier and a briefcase. A burglar alarm was also taken, but was dropped by the thief when it started to screech. Many Northland communities have similar problems with vandalism and theft. If you have any idea who's responsible, Crime Stoppers could pay you up to $1,000. Crime Stoppers will also pay rewards to find out who buys these stolen goods. You know, we want information on any type of crime, not just the crime of the week. This could be your chance to do some real good. Get a reward and keep your name out of it. Call 1-800-974-TIPS or 723-ENOUGH.
The Duluth City...
The tipping fee is going down, and then most of the haulers are following along with that and passing that along to the customers. They've done some other things as far as efficiencies and stuff. I know we have consolidated some routes and stuff.
Take 4. A top priority of this legislative session is setting up the state budget, and with promises of no new taxes, that's not expected to be an easy task.
In 1993, it was $800 million in the red. At least in 1995, we're dealing with a budget that is in the black, although not very much, and we do have caps out there to be addressed in higher education, and in health and human services. But in perspective of 1993 and 1991, the budget that we need to deal with now is going to have very, very difficult choices, but much easier choices than in 91 or 93.
House Speaker Irv Anderson says DFLers now holding just a slim majority are expecting the 1995 session to be tense.
I compliment and thank the minority for not being partisan in today's approach.
So, do you expect a contentious session?
Well, we have nervousness that there will be because of the closeness, but I have served in other sessions where there's been close count between the House or between the Republicans and the Democrats, and I found that we can overcome that and we can work it out.
Overall, no big surprises are expected in 1995, and both parties say they'll work to get the most for Minnesotans without raising taxes. I'm Gina Katzmark reporting from the state capitol. Now back to you.
We passed that bill in 1994, and it was stalled in the Senate. This time around, I have hopes that we can pass it very early on and send it to the Senate, and they too will pass the bill.
Last December, the state auditor released a report shortly after an investigation that dove deeply into the city of Hibbing's pocketbook. What they found were major violations, missing checks, and mismanaged cash. The result? A blow to the reputation of city officials and the firing of 2 employees. Former Mayor Ron Dicklich says he knew there were problems and things weren't going to change unless personnel did. Charges contained in the state's report stated the city should reevaluate personnel. Dicklich says the only choice he had was to fire John Fido.
Now, John Fido's calling the whole thing a sham.
No one ever asked me a question. I was there on a number of occasions in the office after I was dismissed, making myself available to the state auditor. Never asked me a question directly. Didn't ask the finance director any direct questions that I know of.
But the state auditor's office says they did ask questions, and Hibbing's financial director, Jerry Bryce, fully cooperated with the investigation before the report was released. And what about the 626 checks that the audit report found were never authorized to be written?
They were approved. The greatest majority of those checks were approved at a council meeting. The auditor did not do the legwork to follow up.
John Fido has a written list of those checks and an apology from the city council secretary, who says she just recently found the missing checks, but only after the investigation was over. Still, the state auditor claims they've never seen that letter or any proof the checks were authorized. If they do, the investigation may reopen. Until then, the state auditor's calling Fido's claims minor.
Is the bottom line then that you feel very wronged, not only by council, but the mayor, the media, and the state auditor's office?
Well, I guess that would kind of make me look paranoid, and I guess I'm not into that. After 19 years in this business, nothing surprises me anymore.
In Hibbing, Molly McMillan, News 6.
My concern is that the misinformation stops. My concern is that there's an improvement for the city. I don't want 2.5.
It's going to be running tonight at 6 p.m. Do you have any questions? All right, so long.
The support has been anywhere from 56 to 70 communities are forced to engage. It's crazy when we think in terms of forcing people to stay in hospital beds that are terminally ill, that don't want to be there.
We have a long way to go, and I think it's our responsibility. He began the marching, but I feel that in some senses we've kind of slacked up, but I think it's time that we need to carry on so that we can reach his dream, so that we can...
At a time when I found that be in St. Scholastica, and that's not even in 81 in the first Reagan budget, the funds from all parts of the 8th Congressional District, the response has been overwhelming. 80%, 80.8% to be exact, say use the savings for deficit reduction.
It is now Wednesday in Kobe, Japan, more than 24 hours after a massive earthquake rocked the city, leaving behind over 1,000 casualties, burning fires, and collapsed buildings. As the death toll continues to rise, Japanese students at the University of Wisconsin-Superior are calling home, hoping that someone will answer.
My host family called me, and I knew how awful, so I tried calling my family, but at first I couldn't get in touch with them. But my father called me later, so.
After trying several times, all but 5 students have talked with family members. And because they're just learning English, for many, the monstrosity of the quake was only understood through gruesome pictures.
I was so scared about my family.
Dishes fell down and broken, and wall a little bit broken.
But for the first time in the hours since the quake, Japanese students were able to understand every detail, down to a list of the dead, broadcast by a Japanese station at the university. Some sat watching in shock. Others just tried to console one another.
It's very difficult. I mean, it's not just a matter of these students and their families, but all of the students that we've known over the years. I can't imagine losing any one of them.
News of aftershocks caused by the quake is still coming. So far, there have been over 500 near the city of Kobe. And for those students who haven't talked with family, tonight will be a night of sitting, waiting, and hoping.
By and large, they're coming through very well. We've been with them, and they're strong people.
In Superior, Molly McMillan, News 6. NBC SIG out. 3, 2, 1. For NBC News, I'm Molly McMillan. KARE 11 SIG out. Take 1. 3, 2, 1. Molly McMillan, KARE 11 News, Superior, Wisconsin.
We just need to bring structure, more structure and process. I think that's why they hired me, to do some of those things, to sort through and evaluate, which is what we are doing.
What is the biggest thing you want to correct, say, a year from now, where do you want to be?
Well, we would like to bring focus on fiscal accountability, student progress accountability, best practice accountability.
Randy Johnson lives and works in the Northland, and while he likes the area, one thing he doesn't like, the price of a gallon of gas.
Well, I've been in the Northland area, all my life, and it concerns me to the fact that, other places around Minneapolis and whatnot pay lower gas prices than we do. I guess there's not much I feel that we can do about it.
Prices in Duluth have traditionally been between 5 and 10 cents per gallon more than the rest of the state. The price of a gallon of unleaded gas this morning at the ICO station on London Road was $1.16. At Super America in the Twin Cities, it's going for $1.05, and at the short stop in Hibbing, it's $1.10. Why the higher prices? Today, the Minnesota State Attorney General's office released the findings of a 5-month investigation.
In this case, as in others,
I have to report that we were not able to substantiate that there is any gasoline price fixing going on, any illegal activity.
But that doesn't mean they don't think that there's a problem.
I know that the citizens of Duluth seem to be paying higher for gas. And if that means that they're being ripped off, then maybe we can agree on that term.
Today's revelation by the state was very disappointing to both Mayor Doty and Sam Solon, who called for this investigation. It was also disappointing for local consumer groups.
It is frustration, and the thing is, we've been working on it for 3 years, off and on, and we're very upset.
Although many feel there is something fishy going on, nobody seems to know just what. So, until the great gas conspiracy is solved, Randy Johnson and the rest of us will be forced to continue to shell out extra cash at the pump. In Duluth, Ted Rollins, News 6.
My work is about the spirit. It's about finding the place within ourselves, which is where that special light is, where the light of the spirit is, and bringing that to consciousness, to a visualization. I'm working a lot with the ideas of female energy and female power. My own work makes me feel very happy.
Personally, I don't think anybody is going to buy it except those who have a certain, what I would call rabid curiosity about blood and guts. But it's a disappointing story.
I don't want to sound bad, but I think now it's merely to sit down at the table and sign the peace accord. I mean, the war in a sense is over with, and it's let's sign the peace treaty that finally ends it and sends the troops home. You know.
So are they trying to negotiate?
Off the hook, my secretary said we got more calls from them than we did from you guys.
Were you getting a lot?
I think there's a
Still the child from someone, but somebody did this long time ago wrong. And the people realize, especially now, if...
And she says she's finally glad that justice has been served. And she says here, I'm sorry, I am sorry.
So I waited for a bus, and when it came near, I jumped on and said, "Yo, I'm not staying here." So I started to run just as fast as I could. I got to the club, and boy, it felt good.
And I think they also agree that a lot of our previous, and that goes straight into the general. And so again, you got the MVET, you got the...
Our position advocates $100 million more for roads each year in the next 2 years of the biennium. We believe that money should come from the general fund and from efficiencies in the system. And we are opposed to a gas tax increase. Really, the Minnesota Chamber is opposed to any additional tax increases.
So I will acknowledge this is a difficult issue for our members. We think there ought to be $100 million more per year for the next 2 years that goes to transportation. And one of our fears is that what the difference is, but to me it sounded like a tax increase of some sort. That there ought to be a revenue enhancer for transportation, a revenue enhancer in the
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's instantly they catch you. You've broken the law.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And I think it's
some of those people back. Officer Birchland was telling me that he made...
So we constantly stress courtesy when troopers contact people on the road, whether it's a traffic violation or whether it's an assist to a motorist. We try to be courteous, and we find that treating people the way they think they should be treated, we get that kind of response back. 10.
So International Falls and...
No. Works from Cotton up to International Falls. And they've got probably, I think they've got 6 that work around Eveleth and 4 that work up around or 10. 10.
So International Falls and...
No.
There's not one International...
Duluth, Eveleth.
To get people involved. It's evident the ambulance situation. A council cannot obligate a future council, and in 1987 he was granted a leave of absence for the term he was in as mayor. He was re-elected in 1991, and I've been there since then, and he never applied for an extension to that leave of absence, so that'll have to be defined to me.
Township government. Is it neighbors helping neighbors maintain rural communities, or government waste?
I think township government is efficient. I think it's responsive. And we have a wonderful bunch of volunteers and some very bright people that do a really great job.
Minnesota has nearly 1,800 different townships. That's more than any other state. And some legislators say this form of government is too expensive and they want to get rid of it. But many of those living in townships like Lakewood, Rice Lake, and Solway say they'll be left in the dark if it's up to the counties to take care of them.
The townships would lose the grassroots form of government that they now have. And that's where the citizens of the township can come to the annual meeting the second Tuesday of March, and they can, in effect, set their own levies, their own budgets for what they want and what they feel they need in the township. I don't believe you would have that luxury with county government where you could come and express your opinions and get results.
As legislators at the state capitol look for ways to trim government spending, residents of Minnesota's townships are fighting to stay off the cutting board. In Lakewood Township, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
The program is designed to bring the community into the classroom to enhance the lessons with the expertise of specialists such as police officers on law enforcement, probation officers on the criminal justice system, social service people for things like child abuse and date rape. So the teacher does not have to become a lawyer to be able to teach the class. And the kids go out into the community to do something to bond.
A lot of you chipped in, a lot of the city employees chipped in, but we had people in the community approval of minutes.
I see no benefit to it. All this can do is shut down businesses and have people laid off, lose their jobs totally, and it creates hardships for people.
I do that in live chats. Like, my head would get.
Now is the time to say it or forever. And what you've learned and so forth.
There is unity among our Indian people. We're going to change things. No, it's only going to be positive.
Has come here and has got some knowledge. We give them all a chance to give their view.
This change. In fact, I think we might have gotten that about a week before the petition came in. I do still have
And
that.
then Joe Day was in here, was it a meeting or meeting
I think
ago?
it was just
and,
our last meeting, yeah.
He is Herman's Economic Development Director. Helped Gwen Fredrickson start the only retail clothing store in Grant County.
So you like the roses, huh?
Yeah. Dan and Gwen have been dating for 6 months or so. Started 6 months after he told an economic development meeting about Herman needing single women.
Well, everybody had commented about how many bachelors there were in Herman for years, and then all of a sudden it just takes off in the media, and it's just been one heck of a ride ever since.
It's like the American dream. You know, you come out, great life for your son, good business for a way to live, meet a wonderful person. It seems too hard to believe.
Gwen and Dan aren't announcing anything, but they both say there's definitely a future in this relationship. But the point of his speech last year was business development. Tina Diedrichson, for example, came from California with her 11-year-old daughter. Besides arranging and selling flowers, she earns money bookkeeping, doing taxes, writing, selling advertising, and doing mending and ironing. Really important in a town full of bachelors, she says.
I'm at peace. Yeah. Really? I don't make as much money as I used to, but I'm at peace. I'm happy.
Maybe I'll have to buy some new ones for my kid.
Oh, that wasn't so bad. Okay, that'll do.
Well, you know, when you're out on the boat sitting there having a can of beer, you're going to have a piece of jerky or a beef stick with it. You know, it can't all be fish.
Hi, doggy. Say hi, Sarah.
Her budget has gone up so much the last 6 years, and it's mostly selfish thing. She got her job through politics. She got her pay rate raise. Shouldn't be making $40,000 a year.
Well, what happens if she's mayor?
Sued, court threw it out saying that there was no discrimination. The job is nation, and she's a Confederate for them.
The interest of the city is not in her heart.
Oh, you know, just, it's not anything I get into publicly, but